But I am Mark and still amazingly grateful. One of the things for me that coming into this program and becoming honest and giving God what I had, even though I didn't feel like it was anything, then to just step back and watch Him work. That has been the most incredible thing in my life. And part of that is being involved in recovery. Not just celebrate recovery, but recovery. And through that, God led me to an incredible recovery center right here in Terre Haute called the Vigo County Recovery Center. Wabash Valley Recovery Center. And that's where I ran into this lady, and she was just excited, bubbling, said she'd been involved in Celebrate Recovery, and I asked her, I said, well, would you come give your testimony? She said, absolutely, she said. And so it was just like that. And so please welcome Shauna as she's coming here to share with us today.
I didn't know I was using the microphone. I'm Shauna. It wouldn't stick to my dress, so I had to put it on my skin. I'm Shauna. I am a grateful recovering addict. Well, I don't know if you call it that here, but I'm an advocate for those in recovery. I'm a Christ-following advocate for those in recovery. I currently work at Wabash Valley Recovery Center. As he said, I'm a peer recovery coach there. It's not a counselor. It's not a therapist. It's not a sponsor. We just kind of coach people and guide people along in their recovery and hold their hand and meet them where they're at. So with that being said, I'm going to start with my story. And I've told my story, I can't even say how many times, and I know I'm going to leave stuff out, and I'm probably going to drag it on, but because anybody that knows me knows I'm a talker, because I am. And Miss Muncie knows, because she was my earth science teacher many, many years ago, so she knows. Well, I don't know, sorry. It's always Miss Muncie to me. So, I'm from a little town called Brazil, about, 14, 15 miles east of here. I was born and raised there. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. I grew up in I hate using the term normal, but in a normal family. My parents were not users. They weren't drinkers. They weren't smokers. They went to church. They took us on family vacations. They took us to the skating rink on the weekends. My friends would come stay all night. I had a normal childhood. Being the oldest of 3 girls was kind of rough, but I just had to pave the way. So, and boy, I paved the way. So at the age of 14, my parents came to us and told us that they were getting a divorce. And at the time, I didn't understand it, because to me and my sisters and to others, they looked like they were, they were happy. But my mom said that she fell out of love with my dad. And, when you're 14, you don't understand that. You're going through girl things. I was in the cadet corps in high school, and I was just, trying to kind of feel my way, in puberty and all of that. So, I didn't understand what, fell in love or out of love was, but that's what my mom said. So I was really upset about it because I felt like she had just I felt deceived, I guess would be the way. So I was mad at my mom. So I decided to live with my dad. At the coaxing of a friend, she said, because I'm daddy's girl, I'm just gonna say it. She said, if you live with your dad, he'll let you get away with anything. And of course, at 14, I was like, okay, sure. And he did. So at that age, I started, hung around some, they weren't like a really rambunctious, troubled group, we were just kids, 14-year-old kids. And I started smoking cigarettes, and then I started smoking marijuana. And at age 15, I met a boy. He was a couple years older than me. Isn't that how it always starts? I met a boy. And he smoked pot too. He smoked it too, and he also sold it and whatever. So for a couple of years, that's all I did. I just smoked cigarettes and smoked marijuana, and just kind of trying to numb that pain of my parents getting a divorce, and just kind of, again, just trying to feel my way and figure out who I was, in that town and in my life. At the age of 18, I became pregnant by this boy, and we'd been dating, about 3.5 years at this point. He was abusive to me. He started out being verbally abusive and mentally abusive, and then he did eventually get physically abusive, but not in the sense that and I understand physical abuse is physical abuse, but he didn't hit me, okay? He would do it in ways that no one else would know, so he'd grab my arm real hard, and leave bruises, and, and it was a lot of verbal abuse, because I think he knew that I had low self-esteem, and I don't even know where that rooted from, because if you know me now, I'm oozing with self-esteem now, but at that particular time I was not. So I got pregnant, and I decided I did not want to have that baby. I was 18. I was a senior in high school. I did not know what I wanted. I did not know where my life was going. All I knew was the 18-year-old me, please understand that's a different me than now, did not want to have that baby. So I chose to have an abortion, and it was one of the hardest decisions of my life. I've since asked God to forgive me, and I know that He has. So, so we drove to Indianapolis, and I had the abortion. And when we came back, some other friends of ours had some marijuana, and some things that kind of helped me with the pain, the mental pain, the emotional pain, the physical pain. And I was introduced to cocaine, and it was really weird because that's a very small town, and cocaine is what they call a rich man's drug, and so I don't even know where it came from, how they acquired it, but they had it. And of course I did it because I wanted to feel better. And soon after that, I was introduced through that crowd to methamphetamine. I dabbled in methamphetamine. I didn't really, and this was, we snorted methamphetamine at this time. This was I should say I'm 51 years old, so this was the late 80s, early 90s. And meth was just starting to come onto the scene that I knew of. And I started doing meth, and me and that gentleman broke up. He had a friend. I hooked up with a friend. And started dating him for a year, and for the whole year that we first dated, that's all we did. We just did meth and partied, and I was 21 years old, and I had a job. I had a job at Columbia House. I had a job. I wasn't a lazy user, and after a year of dating that gentleman, I got pregnant again. Well, things had gotten a little different in my life at that time. I started thinking a little differently, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna keep this baby, and I'm telling you now, I don't care if you stay with me or if you don't stay with me, but I'm having this baby. So he chose to stay with me, praise Jesus, he did. Of course, we went through a lot of family things. His mom didn't believe that it was his baby and made it rough on us, and I did use the first few months of that pregnancy. I did eventually quit. When I was about 4 or 5 months pregnant with my daughter. I had my daughter in 1993. Her name is Haley. She weighed 5 pounds when she was born. Of course, guilty. She didn't have meth in her system, and I thought that she was preemie because of me using. I had all kinds of guilt going on, and I was just like, I'm not going to use again. I promise I'm not going to use again. Well, a couple months after I had her, I wanted to lose that baby weight. And my ex-husband now, her father at the time, said he started drinking. He turned his addiction turned to drinking and using meth, where I just started using meth. And this went on for a couple years, on and off. We weren't I wouldn't even call us active users, really. It was just kind of if people had it and were at the house and doing it, then that's what we did, and that was just the way it was. But looking back now, I was addicted to it. I know I was. And then in 1997, I got pregnant again with my son, His name is Noah. And again, I said, okay, this is it, and I'm ready to do the mom and wife thing. I'm ready to quit doing this. So we bought a house. I just quit cold turkey. We moved away from that area. We moved out into the country, and I stopped using. And I stopped using from 97 to 2000. I left him in 99 because of his alcoholism. I was doing the mommy wife thing, and I was just burnt out on watching him literally drink a case of beer a day. I focused, I substituted my addiction for being a mom and a wife, and he substituted his for alcohol, and it wasn't mixing. So I left him in 2000, and I was sober. I was stone cold sober when I left him. I packed everything up in the middle of the night, and I took the kids and I left, and I stayed at the Dakota Shelter. My dad helped me get on my feet. I was doing good. I got a job at Great Dane, and I worked at Great Dane, and I met some more boys. And I was 30. I just turned 30, and so I was going through something. And I started hanging out with a lot of younger boys. Okay, I was 30, and these boys were, I'm ashamed to say, 18, 19, 20 years old. They were giving me the attention that all those years that I had been searching for, and I thought that that's what I wanted. All I wanted was the male attention. And my dad gave me plenty of attention. Don't think that he didn't, but I wanted that other kind of attention. And I worked a night shift, so I started hanging out with this guy that worked a night shift, literally a kid that worked the night shift. And he was using meth, and boom, what happened? Sean started using meth again. Well, he was an IV user as well. And I remember seeing him do it for the first time, and he said, "Don't ever ask me to do this for you." And I was like, "Well, don't worry, because I'm fine smoking it and snorting it. I'm fine, I got this." Well, it wasn't too long into that curiosity got me, and I was like, you know what, let's try it. And I tried IVs. This was like 91, 92. And I tried IVs. I started hanging around a really, really rough crowd. My crowd ranged from either they were really, really a lot younger than I was, or they were really a lot older than I was. I rarely, if ever, hung around anyone my own age. And it was always men. I didn't have hardly any girlfriends. It was always men. I started hanging around a couple guys a lot older than me that were also IV users. And some things happened, some legal things happened with my ex-husband and I, and he had me arrested. And while I was in jail, he took custody of my children. I look back now, and I think I know that was when the walls really started crumbling down, because I felt like I had just lost all control of everything. I didn't have my kids. I was getting evicted from my apartment. I'm sticking needles in my arm. Everything was it came crashing. So literally from like 2002 to 2008 is like a blur for me, but I can give you a brief recap. In 2005, so from 2002 to 2005, I was in active use. I was literally living out of my car. I was living with friends in Mansfield. I was living with friends with guys in Terre Haute. I was living with friends. And then I met some guy that was 30 years older than me, moved in with him in Indianapolis. I was just all over the place. I didn't have any kind of stability at all. I was a mess. I was just out there, just all willy-nilly, just doing my thing. I would see my kids when I came down and when I was sober and thought, okay, I'm ready to do this mommy thing, but I just felt so defeated. I felt ugly. I felt gross. I felt defeated. I felt like the odds were against me. I felt defeated. I should back up and say, for my 30th birthday, somehow I ended up in a rehab in Richmond State Hospital, and at that rehab, they did some tests on me, and they sat me down and they said, "We've got some things we've got to tell you." And I thought for sure that they were going to tell me that I had HIV, because I was just so promiscuous and so irresponsible. Well, they told me I had hepatitis C. And I just started bawling. I didn't even know what it was, and they were like, do you even know what it is? And I was like, no, but I don't want it, and so I left that rehab on my 30th birthday with a man that was 20-some years older than me, stole my stepdad's car, and just went on a tangent. I did go buy a lot of books about hepatitis C, because this was pre-internet, pre-cell phones. So I did go buy a bunch of books on it to try to educate myself, and everyone that I came into contact with, and I should also say I only used IVs for 6 months. 6 months. I never shared needles. I asked them how could I have contracted it, and they educated me and said, well, did you ever share the water that you were using your IVs? And I said, yeah, we'd put water in a cap and we'd share that same water. Boom. Your blood particles are microscopic. You can't see them, but there they are floating around in that blood. And I'm sharing this same water with Jimmy and Johnny and Susie and, Kenny. And so I'm just shooting this bad water in my arm, not having any kind of common sense whatsoever. And that's how I contracted it. And of course, when I came home, I tried to contact those guys and tell them, and of course, they denied it. I said, I just want you guys to know I have hepatitis C. You might want to go get checked. Oh, no, we don't have it, Since then, one has actually passed away because of hepatitis C and liver disease, and the other one, I don't know where he is. But anyway, so just from that time on to about 2005, I just would work. I did a lot of waitressing work. That's where I worked a lot. And you can meet a lot of connections that way. And in 2005, I was working at Red Lobster in Terre Haute, and I decided to move over here. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna move over here. I'm gonna make a fresh start. I was just doing the same stuff, because when you want it, you'll find it. It's that simple, and I tell people that all the time. If I wanted it, I could know without a doubt I could walk out my front door and in 10 minutes I could find dope. I know I could. There's no doubt that I could. So I just found a new crowd. Just found some new people to hang out with. I was smoking meth in the bathroom at Red Lobster on my shifts. I was getting pulled over with pipes in my car, and the cops would let me go. I don't know how that even happened. So I met a guy. There we go again. I met another guy, and he was younger than me. And he was selling meth. This was in 2005. He was selling meth for a lady here in Terre Haute. And she liked him like in a romantic way, and he didn't like her. So for that reason, she didn't like me. So this went on for about a year and a half, and he would get dope from her, and he would never pay her, and he played on the fact that he knew that she had a crush on him, so he'd play on that. And so I just followed right along, okay, yeah, we're getting one over on her. This went on for about a year and a half, and finally one day she came to me and she said, you know what, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of him, forgive my language, but screwing me over. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of him stealing my money. I'm tired of him doing all this stuff to me. And I've been kind of watching you, and I've seen your situation. You're living out of your car. You're living with this one. You're living with that one. You're doing this, this, and this. How about I give you some drugs, some meth, you sell it for me, and you make you some money, and you get on your feet. Well, that was an addict's, sure, yeah, because I can have money, I can have drugs, and I can get on my feet. And she likes me now. So it was a win-win. So I did. And in early 2008, within a month, literally within a month, I had more than my fair share of clientele. And I should say, for years in that culture, and a lot of you, if you've done meth and you've been in that culture, usually that game is ran by men. So I did some things, in my addiction with men that I'm not proud of. I did a lot of things that I wasn't proud of to get my drugs. And so it was like the script had been flipped. She and I were running the game now. So we were like, this is pretty all right. These guys are going to come to us for drugs now, We're running the show. We got big heads. We got way too stupid. It wasn't in no time that I was driving to Indianapolis. This was during summer of 2008. I was driving to Indianapolis twice a week, and I was picking up as much as 5 pounds of methamphetamine at a time and driving it back from Indianapolis by myself for her and for me so that I could have my supply of my money. I'd found a house to rent. I cleaned up the house. I was living the dream, I thought. And in that summer, I was running to Indianapolis. I was picking up all these drugs. I was wearing wigs. I was just acting foolish. So that winter of 2008, December 11th, excuse me, the 8 is from 2008. December 11th of 2008 at 6 o'clock in the morning, I heard a knock on my door, and there were about 15 federal agents in my home, raiding my home. I was in bed, but I hadn't been sleeping. There was a couple guys in my house at that time, and I woke up, or I sat up, and I could see into my living room from my bedroom, and I could see one of the gentlemen on the floor with a federal agent over him with his leg on his back and a gun and a rifle or something pointed to him, and I just sat up, and I'm not gonna lie, I peed a little. I did. And they came into my room, and they said, "Are you Shauna Fry?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Could you step down out of the bed, please?" And they went straight to my closet where my drugs were. They went straight to my dresser drawer where my money was. So obviously someone had told on us. So they put me in the police car, and they were actually pretty nice. They weren't, I mean, considering it was 2 weeks to the day before Christmas, so I had a bunch of Christmas presents in my home, and one of them I remember, he said, "Looks like somebody was getting ready to have a good Christmas," and I was like, "Yeah, you think?" And it was all just so surreal, it almost felt like a dream. But I tell people this, but it was just like, as I'm sitting on my couch and I'm smoking a cigarette, I'm waiting to see what they're gonna do, where they're gonna take me, what now, I breathed a sigh of relief. You know, I was just kind of like, because for that whole year of 2008, plus the 8+ years before that, and the 10 years before that I had spent just chasing my tail, no stability, and living as an addict. And I had even got to the point where I wouldn't even do the drugs anymore. I just wanted to sell it, get their money, and get them gone. I got addicted to the money, is what I got addicted to. But so they take me to the jail, and as I'm standing there in the jail, well, my co-defendant, the girl I was selling for, she lived right down the road from me, and they said, "If you don't believe how serious this is, look out the window and you know, see your buddy down there." And I was like, "No, I believe it's serious." I'm not questioning it. So I get to the jail, and I'm standing there, and then she comes in, and then here comes some more people, and some more people, and some more people. So they ended up arresting 19 of us on that particular day on my indictment. Then they also had a second indictment where they arrested like 8 or 10 others. It was what they call a sister indictment. And when you're arrested federally, just so you know this, it's not like when you get arrested in the state and your papers say the state of Indiana versus Shauna Fry. It said the United States of America versus Shauna Fry. And that was like I remember seeing that on the paper and was like, all 50 of them? Yeah. I only live in this one. But you know, I mean, that was the severity of it, you know, that was how real it was. And so they took us in, and the next day they sat me down, and they had a folder this thick, and they pushed it over to me just like you see on TV. They pushed it over, and they opened it, and they were like, "Is this you? Is this you? Is this you?" And I'm like, yeah. They got me for conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. So if you don't know what conspiracy is if Becky and I are talking and we say we're going to go slice Jana's tires, that's 2 or more people conspiring to commit an illegal act. So what they got us on is conspiracy, which means they got us talking about selling drugs. They never got us selling drugs. They never got me actually, hey, here's your drugs, here's my money. They never got us on that. That's how they can hold a conspiracy charge. It's a little charge, but it's a big charge. So they're showing me this folder, and all it is pictures of me feeding my dog, unloading groceries, planting flowers in my yard. It's not even any kind of evidence, but they were just showing me to show me how serious all of this is. So long story short, I spent 19 months in the jail. I was in Vigo County for 1 month. I was in a jail in Kentucky for a month, and then I was in Clay County jail for 17 months because that's where my family is, and my attorney got it so that I could do my time until I was sent to prison in Clay County so I could see my family. I was facing 10 years. I got a 6-year sentence, 72 months, and I did 3 months short of 4 years in a federal prison. I did 9 months in Lexington, Kentucky, and then they sent me to Greenville, Illinois, where I did a program called RDAP, and it's a residential drug and alcohol program, and it's a very, very, very extensive program. It's a 9-month program. You complete the program, you get a year off of your sentence. I did the program successfully. I even got a job outside of the prison once I completed the program because I still had like 9 months of my sentence left. So I got a job at a place called Carlisle Lake, which is in Illinois. It's Illinois' largest man-made lake, and they have a contract. They're ran by the Army Corps of Engineers, and they have a contract with the prison. And if some of the inmates that have like no marks against them and that do well, which was me, because I didn't want to be there to begin with, so I definitely wasn't going to do anything to make me stay there any longer. So I got to do that job, which was great. So for 5 days a week, I did get out of the prison and went and worked for the Army Corps of Engineers. I mowed grass. I learned how to change the oil in a John Deere mower. I weed eated. We painted railings on the boat docks. We did all kinds of things like that. But just to backtrack real quick, the first day that I was in Vigo County Jail, I got on my knees beside my bunk and I prayed to God. And I'll never forget, and I prayed to God not to get me through all of that, what I asked him for was to take away my desire to use. I said, will you please just take away my desire to use? Because I don't know where I'm going from here, and I don't know what's going on. I didn't know it, but when you're on a federal charge, you cannot bond out. Okay, so there is no bond. You're in there till everyone on your indictment goes to court and gets sentenced. You're in jail. You do not get to bond out. So I knew I was going to be there for a minute, but I didn't know how long. And so I prayed for God to take away my desire to use. And my dad likes to make a joke because I started smoking cigarettes again after 4 years of being incarcerated and not smoking them. And he said, well, why didn't you ask him to take away your desire to smoke cigarettes? And I'm like, hey, one thing at a time, okay? The guy's busy, okay? He took away the main thing, okay? So, but he did, and God did. He delivered me from that addiction. I got out and I had to do 6 months in a halfway house in Indianapolis, and then I also did 5 years of federal probation. So I got out in 2012. Got out of the halfway house in 2013, March of 2013. I got a job while I was in the halfway house. I've had a job literally since the day I got to the halfway house. And ever since then, I've not had a job. I started off at a Subway restaurant, then I went to a Dairy Queen in Greencastle because I was living with my sister there. So I became a manager at a Dairy Queen. I'd never been a manager. Nobody had ever trusted me other than to sell their drugs. So in a responsible position before, so that kind of felt good. I eventually moved to Terre Haute. I found my landlord is a wonderful Christian man, and it was only by the grace of God how I found him. It was no coincidence. I know without a doubt it was God, because I've lived in that same house now for almost 9 years, renting. But and I worked at a couple restaurants, and I just knew that God had something else for me. I just didn't know what it was. And in 2020, I was offered a position at Hamilton Center with this thing called the New Citizen Program, where it takes convicted felons, because I am a convicted felon, and that will never go away off of my record. So it takes convicted felons, and you get you in a year-long program at Hamilton Center, and you rotate in 3-month intervals in 4 different departments. After you complete that program, you can choose where you want to stay. So I started off in the inpatient unit. I then went to marketing, to IT, which was not my thing, marketing, and then access, which is basically like an intake. So at the end of my program, I chose to do access. But I just knew, and I'm not gonna lie to you, there were many, many, many days that I pulled into the parking lot at that job and prayed and prayed and prayed, because I didn't really like the way things were done at that place. I'll just safely say there's a lot of corporate politics that go on in there that I wasn't real keen on. So I knew that God had something else for me. I just didn't know what it was, but I remained steadfast in my prayer, and I remained faithful, and I remained patient, and I prayed every day when I pulled in that parking lot, God, keep my mouth shut. Don't let me say something to somebody. Don't let me argue with somebody or pop off with somebody, because that's the kind of stress that I was under. I completed some courses that let me be a peer recovery coach in middle of 2021, and I posted it on Facebook. About a couple months after that, my director of where I'm currently employed, she was my friend on Facebook, messaged me out of the blue. Just messaged me out of the blue and said, I'd like to offer you a position at our recovery center as a peer recovery coach. And I said, well, let me pray about it, because I got benefits, I got insurance, and but I went to 2 of my best friends, and they didn't even hesitate. They were like, yes, take it. Take it, because they knew how stressed I was. So I took it, and this was in October of last year, and I've been there ever since. I have my own office. I can dress however I want. I can wear shorts and a t-shirt if I want. I can wear a dress if I want. I can do whatever I want. I now go into the jails. I go into Vigo County Jail. I go into Clay County Jail, and I go into Park County Jail, and I mentor to the girls there. I also have clients that come see me in the office. And it's all by the grace of God. He knew. And I don't know, real quick, if anybody's familiar with Emmaus, the walk to Emmaus. Okay, so I did my Emmaus walk a couple years ago, and then I worked 2. I even have agape on my arm, but I worked 2. This year I wanted to work 1 again, and I said that if you're familiar with it, then you know what a talk is. I said I would love to do a talk. They called me and they said, you're going to do talk 11 on Sunday, and the title of your talk is called Changing Your World. I got goosebumps when they told me that, and let me tell you why. The drug program that I did in prison, that for 9 months we said this mantra, and this mantra was change your thoughts, change your world. And this lady calls me from Emmaus. I get goosebumps every time I say it, and she says, we want you to do your talk, and it's called Changing Your World. And I was like, God was preparing me, even back there in prison, to do what I'm doing now. And I brought brochures and cards, so if anybody is interested, if you know somebody struggling in addiction, our services are free and confidential. So that's my story. And there's a lot more, but I've been told I should write a book, and I always say I don't think there's enough trees to make that much paper, but maybe one day. But thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. You're awesome.